This time we'll go ahead and start our work session, and we've got Ellen Cantrell, our CPA here, to talk to us about our audit review. Alan.
Mayor, I finished the audit, and it was the audit this year for, and this is for 9/30/10, and within a month I'll have 9/30/11. The numbers look good this year. They were actually better than last year. We paid off some debts in the prior year. As a matter of fact, we took some of our reserves and paid off some debts in the last fiscal year, and it takes a few months for that to show benefits. But it did show benefits by the end of the year 9/30/10. And we increased our general fund reserves by about $300,000 during that period, during this audit period. We got about over $600,000 in grant money for the city, which most of it was spent on the industrial side down there on I-22. I have decided to. I'm working on something just to show you some financial highlights for the year instead of just handing you the big audit report and something I started working on last year, and I'm going to show a couple of years history too, showing some trends for you. Sales tax, you know, we did that sales tax increase, and it really helped the finances of the city. There was everything legally with the bid laws and everything was fine. We one thing that happened during this fiscal year that we found, and Jan first alerted me to it because it started showing up in the last, I'd say 6 months, was the bond funds were being overfunded. And we actually had too much money in our bond funds. And that started in this year, and when I look back, I think what caused it was we closed a couple of accounts at First National Bank and consolidated them. And when we did, Jen was sending in the money each month that the bank told us we needed to send in. But we had a little money to start with, and evidently a little more money than the bank knew about, or I think they just did the mathematics, the arithmetic, and divided by 12 showed us what we had to do each month. But we had a little extra money to start with. So in the year that I just finished, we had where we required to have around $200,000 to $240,000, depending whether you wanted to fund it down to zero or to always keep, say, 1 month's balance in there, depending on how you want to do it. We had probably $200,000, or maybe at this date around $150,000 extra money. And Jan saw that increase, and she called me, and I think Mayor, that either the Finance Committee or you and Jan went ahead and worked out a schedule where that won't happen again, with how much should be in there. Because if we get too much in there, we can't, the banks don't like you to take it out of a bond fund. So it's money we could use for other purposes. And so that was corrected by, it was found internally, which as an auditor I always liked that we were enough on the ball to find it and correct it. So I think procedures have been set up, and that's something that we hadn't had set up, to make sure that the amount in the bond fund, we assumed because we're sending what the bank told us to, that, you know, that couldn't go wrong, but that was the wrong assumption. We actually
Well,
got
that's
too
what
much.
might have happened too, Alan. We had refinanced some bonds. We had money in that fund when we refinanced. We set up a new fund for the new bond, and money was still there. So, there was a significant amount of money in each bond fund, I think, if I recall, Jan.
Well, we had that 2006 principal account, 2006 interest account, and 2007 principal. We had 4 accounts. We closed those and transferred those to one each.
But instead of
There was
keeping
money.
our transfer the same, what we did is just cut our transfers up until the month prior to when it's due, which will give us a little cushion there. And it was significant, over $500,000.
Yeah.
Does it stay in that cushion, or does that go
No,
back
we-
into a general fund? Where does that go?
Well, when we cut the accruals, that means more money stayed in the general fund.
Okay.
But it's accumulating monthly instead of all at one time. And we used part of that money when we paid off the fire truck. And we're gonna vote tonight if y'all don't use the rest of it to pay off the police cars.
Yeah, and it always shows you can
That
always
just freed up
improve your
some money
procedures,
for
and
us.
that's a procedure that we weren't doing, and now we're doing it, and it should never happen again. But we did have too much money put into our bond funds, and that's been corrected. And like you say, I haven't checked with Jan if it's worked out exactly yet, but it's working itself back to where the correct amount should be in the bond fund.
July is when we're supposed to go back to making regular
Regular
scheduled
bond
payments.
transfer.
And that showed up in this year. This is the year it started, and I believe it was because those accounts were closed.
Well, she was balancing the account, making sure that she was making the right amount of transfer. But we were not taking the bank's bond fund account in balance, and that's what we actually needed. And that's what we done when we found it.
And I got the bond issues out, and all it requires is by the time, of course, that the bond payments are due, that there's enough in the bond accounts to make the payments. And that's what we've got done, and that's been correct. So all in all, Mayor, it was a good report, and all corrections that need to be made, to my knowledge, have been made. And before the week's out, I'll have that statistics for you, for some financial highlights. And then, of course, the audit report, and I've got to get with the mayor. We've been using that as sort of a combined annual report and audit report, and it's posted through DAC, that finance company where people that buy our bonds can see our finances. And the mayor, we've been doing an introduction by the mayor, and I've got to get with Lynette and get with her on that, and then I'll be ready to print it. And also get you that financial highlights. So all in all, it was a good year. And when I get you those financial highlights, I'll be glad to look that over, and if you've got any questions for me, I'll of course come back and we'll talk about every one of them. In that financial highlight, I'm going to have you a list of the major revenues, how they compare to the year before, and just give you some trend information.
That'll be nice. Y'all got any questions for Alan? Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And as long as we got those numbers for Kennel, we'll be set. We're gonna try to finish that up.
Okay.
One other thing I want us to talk about here in the work session is, we continue to have, I think the most complaints, I'll back up a little bit, that I've had since I've been here are on the city's ordinances that we have in place that we're not enforcing. So, you know, I'm trying to help come up with some ideas to try to make it maybe easier and simpler, and try to enforce the ordinances that we have in place, and either critique them if we need to make them more enforceable. And some of the things that we're doing right now is we're looking at having a codification for the city, all of its ordinances compiled into one booklet, and we'll be talking about that in our council meeting. But another thing I need from this council in this work session is suggestions on what you think we need to do in order to enforce the ordinances that we have. And when I say ordinances, there's two in particular that I get a lot of complaints on. That's ordinance number 435. This has to do with animals that are within the city limits of Hamilton, especially right around the courthouse here, within just a few blocks of the courthouse. We do have an ordinance that would not allow people to have animals within the city limits unless they come to the city hall and get a permit to do so. And as far as I know, there's never been a permit issued for a person, allowing a person to have certain types of animals. Now, when I say animals, that doesn't mean all animals. It does include chickens and fowl, and it includes pigs, cows, mules, calves, hogs, horses, ponies, or animals like that. I don't know what you think about it, but according to the ordinance that we have in place, there are fines that can be assessed against people that violate this, and the fine can go from $1 a day to $100 a day per animal if we decided to enforce that ordinance. And I don't know if that's something y'all want to start doing. If we do, we need to enforce it. If not, we need to probably do away with it. But another one that I have a lot of complaints on, and that's ordinance number 497, and this refers to the litter. And we're all familiar with that one because this has to do with overgrown lots, garbage, vehicles, any kind of litter that people are accumulating on their property. And you know, I know what some people say to me, it's my property, I should be able to do what I want to with it. But if you're the person living next door to that property and it's devaluing your property, and one piece of property that I went out and looked at where a lady complained that people were actually cluttering up their lot, but they had cluttered it to the point they were running out of room. They were taking their litter and putting it over on her lot. And she's an older lady, she's in her 80s, she doesn't have any children living here. And you know, and she wants to sell her lot. Well, I rode out there and looked at it. I don't think she can. So these are things I think we need to get serious about. We're spending a lot of money with downtown revitalization, trying to make the town beautiful. Regardless of what we do downtown, if we don't do something about these type of things, we're still not going to be where we want to be. So I recommend that y'all look at these things and let's try to tweak them and get them to the point that we can enforce them and then enforce them. That would be my recommendation.
Well, in this, are we looking at the police department enforcing them? Or
Well,
are we going, or is it in the plans, or have you all discussed it before I got here to hire someone to enforce this, or?
I think right now, until we get our code book in place, Marla has agreed to help us with this. Marla Shaw, she's working in the court side for the city, and she's into it enough that she's already reading the ordinances, and she's getting with Scott. I know she's met with Scott Hunt, and she's met with the police chief, and they have made some suggestions. Chief's been very helpful to the ordinances in order to make them more enforceable. So I'll pass this around, y'all want to look at it. But that's not all we need to do. We have got to make a commitment to support Marla and the police department, whoever our designated representative would be, to enforce it. And follow up. Right now, we're sending letters, we're going out and making pictures, we're giving them so many days to clean it up, and it pretty much stops there. As far as I know, we've not assessed any fines. And even on our litter ordinance, we have the ability to, if they don't clean it up, it goes all the way up to $500 per offense, depending on what offense it is. So do we want to enforce our ordinances? Do we get serious about it?
I think people want the, again, you call it the litter ordinance in people's homes. I think people want that enforced.
That's the one you're looking at right there. That's the original.
But what, we're doing half the job, we just gotta finish it.
That's right.
I mean, we're going out, police is going out looking, making sure it's a legitimate complaint, sending the letter. So I think we're failing, we need to,
Well, actually, we got a documented file. They go out and make pictures, they bring it back in, you know, we can see, yes. Then we can go back out and say, in 30 days, I believe we're giving them 7 days now, but we're recommending we change it to 30. And we go back out and look, and maybe they've not made any improvement. So what do we do then? That's the question.
Marla and I were looking at the city of Gunnersville, and I think she got copies and did you go in and look at them?
I've got
You
it,
got
and
it.
I highlighted some
They
things.
really, they don't mess around.
They don't mess around. If they,
But it's claimed too.
Well, it's a tourist town. I mean,
Yes.
it is, you know, everyone comes there for the lake and I've met their city
there's
clerk.
one
They really
thing they got in
enforce
theirs
it.
that I really liked. I've read that, and y'all are.
She said they
welcome to
have
take
a hearing
yourself
almost every
copies.
council meeting.
One of the things they do is, if they assess a fine and they don't pay it, they go to court, the judge says you gotta pay this fine, and they don't pay it, you can, put a lien against the property. But you can also, yes, but you can also, that means the property has to sell before you ever get your money, if you put a lien against the property. What Gunnersville is doing, they are putting a lien against it like a tax. And when they go pay the taxes, they have to pay that money. So they're collecting it through the tax.
Yeah, they got many
We
codes.
can do that.
we need to change the.
Right here, the word. So we're just trying to get to where we think we need to be, because like I said, I can understand, no. I like to keep my place neat and clean and back and make it more attractive, but not only make it more attractive, it's keep it, market value, you know. Somebody move in next door, they trash the place. That's right.
We have a lot of yard sale signs put on them, and they're never took down.
Yeah, it's not gonna be, popular, but they put telephone numbers on those signs, and so it'd be easy to find out who's probably putting them up and addresses.
Big full-time job.
We've run into that before on the yard sales. They come to this conclusion that they'll put them up on Friday, take them down on Monday, before Monday, it'd be all right, but they not gonna do that. They're gonna forget about it. Now, on your houses that are dilapidated, you might say, whatever that means, the only way you're gonna get people to take care of that is to get them to come before the judge and answer to the judge on what they're gonna do about it and when. If they say, well, we'll take care of it, next year, that ain't gonna work. You gotta have a date that that'll be done. And you can't, if you got buddies and stuff like that run around town and, you know, highfalutin folks, just put it in a simple term, are the more influential people of the city, and they've got something like that, they're gonna have to be treated the same as anybody else.
Well, I know for a fact, and we all know that when business or industry decides this is an area they want to go to, and they don't care where they go to Winfield, Fayette, or Hamilton, it's just an area similar to this, they will come in and look at your town. And it is important for recruiting business and industry that we take pride in the place where we live. So I want us to think about that and work on that.
First impression is when you see that city limit sign, or the city limit, or the welcome to Hamilton sign. Then the next thing is when they come to City Hall and they do business. And there's some things around here that need to be taken care of too.
And I've got one for you. When they come through town and they see our pocket park up there and see that old sign where you have to put letters up on it, and then the other places have got these electronic signs that flashes across there.
Well, we're getting there. Gotta get some cement poured first.
Yeah, get some.
Well, I've had some people mention that when you ride up to that corner and you stop there at a light, you look over to see that sign, the historical sign's in your way, you can't read the, what's on the
Marquee sign.
marquee sign.
Well, you can't read it at night, no way, unless you got a light, because there's fluorescent
Well,
lights behind
I
it.
mean, in the
and they
daytime,
don't
you can't,
work.
in the daytime though, you can't read it.
There's no light shining on it.
That's
In other
just
words-
my
In
suggestion.
other words, they suggest the historical sign should be moved over a little so that you can read it, so. But
Well, I'd like to see us get in behind this litter situations, because that's one of my pet peeves. Anybody, you can be poor, but you can be proud. You know, that's just laziness. There's no excuse for having all that around you and evaluating your own property and somebody else's too. So we need to get serious about that and get like Garnersville and do something about it and be positive about it.
Well, one
Not just
thing
keep
that we
talking
could do to encourage that, I think, if y'all would agree to do it, is that we could set aside a week out of the year that is cleanup week for the city of Hamilton. And during that week, anybody that wanted to put their accumulation of litter on the side of the road, on the right-of-way, that we could go out and pick it up and get rid of it for them. This 1 week out of the first year to get this thing kicked off. So, you know, it might be that if we would get behind that and get our clubs and a lot of people working with us on that, that we could set a week aside to do that before we start getting too tough on people and charging them money to do it. But then if it continues, then I think we've got to get done. Another thing I wanted to report to you, the testing on the Munsonware building is complete, and it's in the lab right now. I have some preliminary report, but I can't read it. They haven't given me anything that I can understand. Hopefully, I will have it tomorrow. I thought I might have it today, and I could report to you tonight how that turned out, but I don't have it, so I won't be able to report on that. But I can tell you, they started the parking lot behind the city hall, and they're gonna pour some curb and gutter in around it before it's completed. But the work needed to start and let it sit there and settle a little bit before we do the actual paving anyway. We also have a Facebook page set up. If you have a Facebook, if you're on Facebook, you can log in to Hamilton, Alabama official information. And you can look at that Facebook. I looked at it a few minutes ago before I came in here. There's a lot of people. I think we had 53 people the first day it was up that looked at it. And I saw where you'd been on there, and a lot of other people. So you can't change anything on it. There'll only be very few people that can go in there and post anything or take anything off, but you can look and see what people are saying. So I welcome you to go to Hamilton, Alabama official information website and see what's going on in Hamilton. A lot of good information on there. We're also updating the city's webpage, and Ed's doing some pictures for us, and you'll be seeing a change in that. It'll be an ongoing change, but we'll be working on that as well. I think that's all I have, unless y'all have some for the work session.
Good for somebody that's had